We're live.
Welcome to the CLE group chat. Today is September 9th, 2017, and my name is Joshua. With us, we have Tanya from Indiana and Jeannie from Australia, and from Indiana, we have Christopher, who started this ministry. And we're only allowing our church group to be on this call, but you can still watch and use the live chat and share this video with family and friends to watch it with you live. And if you're watching a recording of this and prefer to watch it as it happens, make sure you subscribe and click the bell. And that's to let you know when we're live so you can chat with other live viewers during the broadcast. And without further ado, we have an article from people.com titled, "Mom of 5 gives birth to daughter while in a coma after refusing cancer treatment to save her child," which says a Michigan mother of 5 gave birth to her sick...
Sorry, could you reread that? Because I got a little confused. Okay. Read it a little bit slower so I can understand it.
Mom of 5 gives birth to daughter while in a coma after refusing cancer treatment to save her child. She refused her own cancer treatment.
She refused
in order to save her
cancer treatment in order to save her child.
Yes.
Okay, that was a little confusing the way it was worded. Thank you.
Yeah. A Michigan mother of 5 gave birth to her 6th child.
To clarify my confusion, it sounded like what they were saying was the cancer treatment would have saved her child. Do you see what I'm saying? They made it sound that way. What they're saying is by refusing it, they would save the child, which makes more sense.
Exactly. A Michigan mother of 5 gave birth to her 6th child, a daughter, on Wednesday, while in a coma that she has been in since July. Carrie Decline, 37, was diagnosed with glioblastoma in April, an aggressive, rapidly growing malignant tumor that can affect the brain and spinal cord, but opted to avoid experimental treatment to save her baby, whom her family named Life Lynn Decline. Life was delivered at 24 weeks and 5 days, weighing 1 pound and 4 ounces, according to Carrie's Facebook page, Cure for Carrie, which provides updates on her health. Now that little girl has arrived. Decline has been taken off life support, with her family telling supporters that she is very comfortable. She's in God's hands until he calls her home. Carrie's husband, Nick, told People.com in early August that his wife refused chemotherapy treatments in order to preserve the life of their unborn child. The doctor said, "If you don't terminate this baby, Carrie, you will die." Nick said, "But if it was Carrie's decision," and I said, "What do you want to do?" She said, "We're keeping it." A Facebook post last Saturday by Carrie's sister-in-law, Sonia Nelson, revealed Carrie had become completely unresponsive and was no longer responding to pain. "I spoke with Nick and he wanted to update me to update," she wrote. "We try to share Carrie's story without being negative, but the bottom line is that we need to share the reality of the situation. Carrie is not doing well for the past few days. She has been completely unresponsive. She is not even responding to pain."
Well, I mean, her choice to do that's not very feministic, is it? I mean, she should have really just killed that parasite fetus in order to save her own life, right? In order to give her the life-giving chemotherapy radiation, which has given so many people lives with like a 98% mortality rate. It saves so much life. But again, 2 Corinthians 12:14 says, "For the children ought not to lay up for the parents, but the parents for the children."
Carrie and Nick share 5 other children: Elijah, 18, Isaiah, 16, Neviah, 11, Lilia, 4, and Jez, 1. Nick told People.com of the amazing mother Carrie was. "She's the kind of mom that wants to be with her kids all the time, building forts in the backyard, taking the kids on walks to the park, and making them special lunches. I'm going to really miss those moments," he added.
So, well, I mean, type in the word cancer, C-A-N-C-E-R, at creationliberty.com, and you can find out how you won't have to miss those moments anymore. The article is called "The Cure for Cancer." Read more.
Carrie underwent 4 major brain surgeries and suffered a stroke in July. She hasn't regained consciousness since. "I don't know if she hears me, but I tell her I love her every day," Nick said. "I say, 'I love you, Carrie, and I'm waiting for you to wake up and take you home.' I tell her I'm staying by her side and I'll never leave her. I want more than anything to bring her home." Nick said he'll raise their children on his own if his wife dies, and he's confident he'll see her again, not in this life, but after my time is up, I'll be with her again in heaven, he said. She made the decision to give life a chance at life, because their daughter's name is Life. And I couldn't be any more proud. End of article. And some of the comments on this article, not like on the live YouTube chat, but like on the actual article, some of the comments were very harsh in response. And now I'm going to read you some of the comments, but just keep an ear out because it's going to use the word selfish.
Now, before he even begins, I want to explain to everyone why the comments are harsh. That this is not unexpected. It's actually expected that they would do that. That's why I made the comment earlier that said, that's not very feministic of you. And I did that sarcastically only because, of course, they're going to be harsh. And the reason for it is because her decision condemns them. Her decision to do what is righteous biblically. Now, of course, they're in their ignorance about cancer, and I don't know that this is actually a Christian family or anything like that. So I can't say for sure what the basis of their philosophy is. But the fact that she made a righteous decision to lay up for her child condemns them. And so therefore they're going to turn around and condemn her. Just like, when the Pharisees and the Sadducees, the chief priests, the elders and things like that, Stephen in Acts chapter 4 or Acts chapter 7, Stephen, he condemned them for what they were doing. They dragged him out of the temple and they stoned him until he was dead. And that's exactly what they're going to do to anybody who lives righteously and does what's right, because it's always something that condemns themselves. That's why in Romans chapter 1, it says that these things they do, they are worthy of death, but have pleasure in them that do them. They get along with other people that do the same wicked things. And so someone who lives a life righteously, it automatically condemns them. Why? Because if you go to Romans chapter 2, the next chapter, it says the law of God is written on their hearts. They already know what they do is wicked. And so when they see someone doing what's right, it condemns them.
Yeah, and as I read these articles, these comments, they're going to use the word selfish and selfless. So just keep an ear out on the difference. Don't get those confused. But anyway, Matthew Cuffman says, what a horrible person she is, leaving 5 kids without a mother, and no doubt gifting the new child with some prenatal problems that will manifest later in its life.
Because after all, we know all men are evil, so leaving them with a father is just leaving them with this evil person that's going to torment them for the rest of their lives.
Totally in the wrong. Supporting this awful behavior is wrong. This woman's selfishness is astonishing. I don't get how she's selfish. I don't even get it from their view, how they would see her as selfish.
Like it's so selfish to give up her life for her child. Yeah, that's totally selfish. Sure.
Yeah, like Jesus Christ dying for the sins of the world. What a selfish person. What a selfish God.
Ellery Macbeth said, this is just terrible. What a horrible tragedy. Still, I can't help but feel for the 5 kids, including a 1-year-old baby, who will have to live without a mom, so she could bear a preemie that might not live or be healthy either. It was her choice, and I'm sure they were convinced she'd be healed by prayer. But it seems that religious people focus on the little ones that are growing inside and not the little ones who are growing up. The next comment says, Sarah Jolly says, preemies will suffer from a myriad of lifelong physical and mental conditions in the United States. The public cost is $26 billion. This woman chose to give up her life and the time she could have spent with her husband and 5 living children to bring an individual into the world that will face multiple hardships, not to mention no mother and the burden to the rest of us. And I don't find that selfless at all.
wait. It's going to be a burden to the rest of us. How selfish of her to make us think of others. That's ridiculously selfish. Not us. We're not selfish, but how she's making us think about somebody else but ourselves.
My mother was given 1 to 2 years to live after being diagnosed with cancer, and she died 2 months later. People with glioblastoma have lived 3 to 5 years. Before my mom's death, she told me the only thing that matters is that she is with her family. I wish Carrie Decline would have given her family that chance, and had more regarded, and had more regard for her life. Julian Hadley said, I don't think giving up treatment in order to have a micropreemie is a sin.
I'm sorry, Josh, before you continue that comment, there's something I want to say there. I think none of these people have ever met someone who've had any complications when they were younger. They've obviously never done anything charitable and selfless themselves to help somebody else who's been in a situation like that to know what they've gone through or what they've done or what they've accomplished. I'll tell you what, since they worship at the feet of evolutionism and they're atheists and they think there is no God, do they quickly forget that one of their God-type idols, Stephen Hawking, would have been in the same position? But they think he is someone that's totally brilliant. But yet at the same time, why don't they go to him and start posting on his Twitter, you should have been aborted? Hypocrites.
I don't think giving up treatment in order to have a micropreemie is a sane decision. No one should ever have a micropreemie by choice. Also, if your God was really that great, you would never have been in the situation to begin with. Stop giving him the credit for everything good while never blaming him for the bad.
Had the woman ever had chemo before?
It didn't say, but...
Well, I can tell you this. Her diet is what led her to the cancer to begin with. That's what people don't recognize. If you want to know why that baby might be in a bad, poor health condition at the start, I could give you probably about 100 reasons why. And then you're going to sit there and blame God in your ignorance. Well played. You as a sinner, a wicked person who has lied and been selfish and done all this selfish lust that you want to do, are trying to judge a perfect God, is absurd.
And one person had mentioned in the comments that any decent person would have given their life for their child. And somebody by Rebecca, Tanya, replied to that. And she said, excuse me, any decent person would? Untrue. Don't impose your values and conclusions on others. Many would not have done what she did, or rather didn't.
How dare you try to imply that we are decent?
Her choice was not kill her infant. An embryo is not an infant. A fetus is not an infant. She had 5 children already, children she loved, children who needed and loved her. She had no way to know if the pregnancy would even go to term. It was not an infant, it was not a teenager, it was not a toddler, it was a parasite.
Well, you see, and that's the thing, is that they don't realize that there are other people in this world who are not selfish like they are. They don't have selfish, idealist, feministic, disgusting, satanistic values in their hearts, and would gladly marry that man who is taking care of his family to become his next helpmeet in line. Not to say that he's just ditching his wife or did not care for her or love her, but the fact that he needs another helpmeet to help him out. There are many women that would jump on the opportunity to live in a household and be a housewife, and to be a helpmeet to a man as he's taking care of and providing for his family, that she would help take care of his family as well. And I'm sure the children would be grateful for that. And even though the young baby who didn't know, was it a boy or girl, did they say? I forgot. Was it a girl?
Daughter. A girl.
A young girl. She never knew her mother. I'm sure she'd be grateful to have another mother who's there for her and would do all that. And it's not that to say he's not going to be cared for is that feministic value that all men are evil and men can't take care of their families. That's ridiculous. There are many men who do. And in fact, if you go through the feminist article and you go through some of the bibliographies of the different studies that I went through and all that, you will see that a lot of children have grown up better in a single male household run than a single female household that's been run. And there are numerous reasons why that is. If you want to know more about that, type in the word feminism into the search bar at creationliberty.com and read that article, Feminism, Satan's Plan to Destroy Your Family. You can get more details.
And she continues, I hope little life, and life is the name of the daughter, I hope little life stops breathing and is not resuscitated. Almost no one is talking about her incalculable suffering. People with beloved dogs and cats would not want them to endure that torture.
This person is concerned that there's not enough oxygen in the world for them, because if that's the case, like, she could stop breathing. She could be selfless and just stop breathing for the sake of the baby.
Yep, it even says she loved being with her children, yet she, in effect, said to them, sorry, gotta go. This 6th potential child is more important than all 5 of you. And now somebody by the name of Patty Etheridge left a comment.
I mean, there's the thing is that wasn't the Bible talking about where Jesus Christ gave the parable in which there's 100 sheep and one is lost, and when the shepherd goes finds that lost one, he's more excited for the one that he found than the 99 who were not lost. Okay, the other children are okay. They're getting older. They're old enough. A lot of them are old enough to help out around the house and do things like that. They're not. I mean, even if Dad died and all the children died, and let's say a couple of them were left over, they would not die tomorrow. They could fend for themselves to a certain degree. So it's not like there are families in this helpless situation. Well, why don't we just take the feministic position and just kill them all? Why not? Just kill everyone altogether. I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, who's to say? I mean, how these people are judging in total ignorance. They don't know their situation. They're looking at a very vague article, which it is vague. It doesn't give a whole lot of specific details about the decision of a mother to protect her daughter, and they are condemning that as wicked.
And ultimately, it's up to the Lord who lives and who dies and how long each of us has. You know, if God wanted to take that baby in the womb, he would. If he wanted the baby to live, he or she would. That's just how the cookie crumbles.
And with
it's not always up to us.
As with horrible as she would have been eating to get the cancer to begin with, God was very long suffering with her to allow her to live as long as she did and have as many children as she did.
Well, and one of the things that strikes me is how many of these people are lashing out, but they're not offering to help this dad through the situation. They're not offering to help care for the baby. They're not offering to help care for the children. I mean, I'm not saying that all these people are his next door neighbors or anything, but the point is, if they're that concerned about a mother giving up her life for her child, why not help? Why not step up and say, hey, is there something we could do to help take care of this family, rather than condemning them for their choice?
Yeah, but that's what she was complaining about, though. That's what the person in the comment was complaining about. They said she's leaving it up to the rest of us to have to fend and help this person. See, it's their selfishness. That's the point. The mother's selfish because she didn't consider us. She didn't consider that we might have to give this child a piece of our pie. That pie is delicious, and I want it for me. That's basically what the list of comments are all basically that.
We like pie.
I like pie too. Okay, I like pie too. And Lorraine makes something like that. Am I sad to see pie go when she gives it to someone else? I am. I'm not going to lie. I can be selfish like that too because I like pie. But at the same time, I'm glad that she gives it to somebody else, that somebody else can, can have access to those things, and that she's charitable along those lines. So again, this all comes down to your philosophy. And a philosophy, again, but simply put, is a way of thinking. You have a way of thinking after Christ, or you have a way of thinking after the world. And the world says, just kill them. Why not? Because they're so selfish, and they're so developed on their selfish lust, and they have the nerve to sit back and judge a perfect God.
So a different person named Patty, she said, wow, all these judgmental people. Yeah, all these judgmental people, until you've walked in someone else's shoes, zip it, you will reap what you sow. And now Tanya replied to that. I'm sorry, I was looking at you, Tanya.
But what she said was absolutely true. God is not mocked. The Bible says you don't mock him. That's right. And any of these people, I guarantee you, they have all had a time in their life they had to rely on somebody else, that they didn't have something, that they had to sleep on somebody else's couch, that kind of stuff. I've known tons of people who've been in that position at one point in time in their life or their other. And no baby on the planet is viable on its own. None.
Takes a village to raise a child.
If we take any of those people making comments, strip them stark naked and put them in the Arctic tundra, they are not viable either. They would have to rely on somebody else. Everybody is relying on somebody for something. For the clothes you make, a lot of time, most of these people, they bought them in the store. They didn't make them themselves. They relied on somebody else to clothe them. They went to a grocery store to buy food. They didn't grow it themselves. They didn't make it themselves. A lot of them are just taking food out of a box and following a recipe. Here, pour all this into a bunch of water and stick it in the microwave. You just relied on somebody else. Not just somebody else, many other people. The people who ship the stuff, the people that produce the stuff. We rely on each other so much that people often forget how much we rely on each other for our very basic needs. So, I mean, the very fact that they can have electricity and put on that computer is not the work of most women, by the way, since a lot of these are feminists who are talking. It's by the work of most men who are working hard. They're mining coal. They're doing the hard work that people don't want to do. And they're maintaining the plants and things that need to be done. Dangerous work in a lot of instances in order for us to maintain and have this electricity where we can have these things on and have these discussions. So people are not viable on their own for a lot of things. And there's been a lot of tragedy of people who have, been individual farmers in areas who've had nothing but to rely on God for their protection, for to provide for them. So, I mean, to make these arguments is just, it's all based on their personal subjective opinions that they have drawn from a privileged, from a spoiled and privileged position that they live in America, where they've had everything handed to them, all these government handouts and everything, and think they can sit back and they can judge somebody else's situation without even knowing exactly what it is.
Which, with all the hurricane stuff that's happening down south, I mean, it's awesome to see people pull together and not set aside these petty things and just work together, because everyone's affected by something. And instead of judging each other, saying, oh, well, how dare you this or whatever, I'm not going to help you XYZ, everyone's affected. Everyone, and we should be like that all the time, is kind of my point.
But
if someone needs something,
argue the other side.
You should help
argue the other side. Just don't forget the feminists have a voice too. We might as well just all kill them, because they're not viable on their own. If you're hit by a hurricane, everybody dies. Just kill them all off.
Yeah, your house is flooded. You can't. You don't have any water, sanitation,
right? Because you
electricity. Then you may as well just die.
You chose to live in a hurricane zone. You chose to live there. Just let me finish. Okay. You chose to live in a hurricane zone. And so you didn't consider all of us and your decisions. You didn't consider how we would have to help you and provide for you.
How dare we give you water and food and money?
We can't do all that. This is ridiculous. I even heard of I heard the other day of it, an atheist. Now, I'll tell you this. This was an atheistic person. Well, I don't know if it's an atheistic person. Actually, no, I think about it. The person telling the story, no, that wasn't an atheist. It was a person who, it's a churchgoer, someone who claims to believe in God, but they're lukewarm. But even one of the guys drove clear out with a trailer full of food and water and everything else that he bought, drove hours all day out to that location to give people stuff. And this was during one of the last hurricanes they had. And so even that puts to embarrassment a lot of the basic, people professing Christianity that I've met. That puts them to shame. And so even that
puts me to shame, and I donated.
Right.
But, well, like I don't have that kind of time, and I'm thankful that he did.
We don't have that kind of money, really. So I'm glad he had the time and money to do that.
Which is awesome.
And the resources, because you got to have the trailer and everything to get down there, and he had the truck and all that to do that. So, but anyway, the point being is that people, we don't need the government to even get involved in that stuff. People can be charitable on their own. And so to presume that one baby is going to get, there's only like 300 to 350 million people in America. There's no way that baby's going to get any help. No one. That's the odds of that are just too small, right?
Yeah. So Rebecca Tony replied to her, and she said, "Whoa, lost my spot." Yeah. There is no judgment here. There are only opinions. Yeah, there is no judgment here. There are only opinions. No one is sowing anything. And then she continues.
Oh.
So they said there was
taking sowing literally.
Right.
That's ridiculous.
I'm trying to ask a question. There's was or was not judgment. What did they say? Sorry, I was reading.
There is no judgment. There are only opinions. Yeah.
There's no judgment.
It's like the same thing. She's trying to Justify yourself.
Do they know what judgment means? Does anybody know what judgment means? I mean,
apparently not.
Because to say there is no judgment here takes judgment to discern. He's judging what's in the words of what. Can I finish, guys? Please, just let me finish. I'm just saying what the statement she made is an oxymoron. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's contradictory. Not oxymoron, I was going to say that. I mean, it's a contradiction to even make the statement, because she had to judge what people were saying in order to say there is no judgment here. That's ridiculous. So the phrase itself makes no sense.
Well, and if she's not judging, then she will die, and so that baby could live, right?
Could you clarify? She's going to die.
Well, if we don't judge things every day, we would die. You know, if we didn't make judgments on a daily basis, we would die. And so if this woman isn't going to make any judgments, maybe she'll die and the baby can have her oxygen and her pie. Yay.
Well, you see, and the judgments that Tanya's talking about are things like, okay, if you're going to cross the road and not judge, you're going to get hit by a car. Because after all, you don't judge anyone. You don't judge the drivers around you. And if the driver doesn't judge you, he's not going to stop when you're crossing the road and not judging him. So if everybody stops judging each other, we'll all die pretty quick. And so I think that's kind of the way, doesn't that solve the problem? Everybody stop judging everything, and then we'll let all the wicked people just kill each other off.
She continued, and I hope, and this is in all capitals, she says, and I hope no one gives this family any money. 3 exclamation marks.
Is there do they have anything to donate to those people? Because I almost want to do it just in defiance of that woman.
Yes, that would be great.
What just to pull coals of fire on top of her head to give that family. Do they have any?
I think that would be fun.
Do they have any anywhere to send money to their family to help them out? Did they advertise any of that on the article? Do you know of?
Yes, they did. They had a GoFundMe.
Oh,
and
okay.
Yeah.
You want to provide information that we could get on here for them?
Actually, I have to go find the article. I could do that. Oh, mind if I do it a little later?
Yeah. If you could just remember to do it at the end. That way, it entices everyone. Watch the whole thing through. Watch the entire video, and at the end, we'll give you where to go. Maybe I can put it in the description too. I'll put a link.
Good idea. Nice.
Or in fact, that would be better actually. Yeah. That way people don't get confused on the video. Just give it to me after we're done, and I will put it in the link description. And there will be a link down below where it says, share, subscribe, all that stuff in the description, and that'll have the link to the GoFundMe where you can help out their family. And that way we don't have to, we can just let the feminists yowl and whine all they want, and then we'll actually
do something good.
Yeah,
for someone else.
Help somebody else,
charitable.
Right?
Mm-hmm. All right, and Rebecca left in yet another comment. Why is this news? A person dies every 3 to 5 seconds on this planet, and cancer isn't unusual, and this type of cancer pretty much always kills. It is an awful process. And the photo of that baby, inhumane, unspeakable, immoral. It is inexcusable to put an organism through that much suffering unless the organism gives consent, which sentient creatures can, but this organism cannot. Vile, vile, vile. No photos.
Well, I would say to her, look, I don't understand why you're putting through humanity through so much suffering, having to listen to your comments and read your comments.
Yeah, why comment at all? But it didn't die, so
the baby did not die. She's alive.
She's consenting to live.
How dare you show me pictures
organism through that much? How can they put an organism through that much suffering? Does she ever stop to think how much babies suffer when they're aborted? Oh no, but babies they're not really human until they're born. So they can't feel anything. They can't feel pain or anything like that.
I feel pain all the time when I have to read feminist comments.
But I mean, the abortion procedure itself, I mean, that causes immense pain. to that baby. And she's worried because and this woman is being critical of a baby being allowed to live. Wow. That just blows my mind.
She continues, no photos of baby torment, please. No huge expenditures to prolong life involving so much unproductive pain. Horrifying. People in the U.S. are lucky to have access to legal and safe abortion, which can prevent so much misery. And then that part confuses me. No huge expenditures to prolong life involving so much unproductive pain. What huge expenditure is there? I mean, the expenditure would have been to get the chemotherapy, right? Because that's the one that costs so much. So I'm not sure the point she's making. But anyway, she says, but it's the decision always of the pregnant person if she is deemed capable of willful refusal.
Yeah, actually, the cost of chemotherapy, I think, is still an interesting argument. And the reason for that is because if she decided to get rid of her baby, kill the baby, and then pay for all the chemotherapy, she still would have died 2 to 5 years later from all the radiation. So she was putting up her own death sentence anyway, and she would have been stuck with hundreds of thousands, potentially, dollars of hospital bills, which would have plagued her entire family. So it was still better for the family that she put up for the child.
We as outsiders on the internet can say and think what we want as strangers to this family, but not necessarily to the physicians involved. He continues, we can talk about our own experiences with cancer, even with this particular one, and with marriage and with big families, and yes, we can. Yeah. Now, I think that was her last comment. But that part, she puts and ... yes, we can. So, I mean, I'm not sure her point, what she's even saying there by yes, we can, is like, it makes me remember that article. I think it was in there. Am I right? It was What's Wrong with Christian Rock, and how it talks about yes, we can, and I don't. Maybe that's what she's referring to, because it means something backwards. I remember, but or maybe she's just.
That was Obama's slogan.
Oh.
That was Obama's slogan when he was in, like Trump is "Make America Great Again." Obama was "Yes, we can."
Yeah, because it stood out to me because she separated that from everything else, just isolated.
So far, the presidential messages people are getting, they're taking the positivity. Pretty soon, the way the communist politics are going, elections are going to be held on, hey, vote for this candidate whose slogan is "kill all fetuses."
Ew.
It'd be something absurd like that. That's what they would do. I mean, that's the direction things are going. The more and more people buy into this, feminist communist propaganda, that's what's going to end up happening. Of course, they'll still put a positivity spin on it. I'm just being sarcastic, but they'll still put the spin on it to say, oh, make sure women have the right to choose. That'll be the campaign slogan of the future, right?
Mm-hmm. How is it selfless to selfishly bring a sick child who will be motherless and will receive a check from the government for 18 years into the world? Let me guess, because Jesus. That's what Adam Robinson.
I have a question about that. Did they show pictures in the article? Because I just looked up the article that you just read, and I saw no pictures of the baby whatsoever. And I didn't see where she was this quote-unquote micro preemie. It looked like to me that she was a healthy newborn.
Well, they had some pictures. It was they have 2 articles actually on people.com, and one of the articles has a picture of the baby, and it looks like it has some medical instruments supporting it, and one of the articles does, the other one doesn't have that. So if you go to the other article, it's there. But I don't know why they have two articles on the same topic on the same website. That confused me. But anyway. Yeah, so the next article, if there's no more thoughts, I'll go to the next article. It says an article from Newsline titled Vive la Evolution. Natural Selection Erasing Alzheimer's and Asthma from Human Genes Study. Chronic illness such as asthma and Alzheimer's disease are seemingly being wiped out from human genes thanks to natural selection as part of human evolution. According to a groundbreaking study, gene variations associated with asthma, Alzheimer's, and high cholesterol have noticeably declined in just 2 generations. Scientists say this effectively proves that Darwinian evolution not only exists, but is still taking place. The findings, which follow an analysis of the genetic blueprints of 150,000 Britons and 60,000 Americans, carried out by the researchers from Columbia and Cambridge University, suggest that diseases could be weeded out of the human species in 1,000 years, or in a few thousand years. It's a subtle signal, but we find genetic evidence that natural selection is happening in modern human populations, said Joseph Prickroll, an evolutionary geneticist at Columbia University, one of the study's authors. Scientists taking part in the study, published in the PLOS Biology Journal, believe men without Alzheimer's could be able to have more children, while both men and women with Alzheimer's tend to be less capable of looking after their grandchildren. These factors affect survival while also limiting the propagation of the genes.
Because, of course, we're getting bigger and better and stronger and faster and smarter all the time, right? And, just a few thousand years ago, we all used to be monkeys walking around, and now look at us now. And pretty soon, we're going to have no more diseases. We will evolve past disease. Eventually, we'll all fly, and eventually we'll be able to create worlds with our minds. How far does it go? I mean, you shall be as gods.
For example, if men have with APOE4 have a 0.1% fewer children on average than men with them, this would be enough for these variants to be removed quickly by natural selection, said lead researcher.
Absolutely wrong. And the reason for that is because there are numerous diseases which are caused by sin. And that's what people don't understand. There are so many sinful actions, whether it's gluttony or sexual lust, whatever it is. There are numerous diseases that are caused through those sins. What they're saying is that they can defy God and God's rules about that stuff and the punishments that he's giving for those things. They can bypass that stuff and be totally immune to any consequences for their sin. And that's where I explain to people that, venereal disease is something it's an STD that's spread around people all the time. And sheep also get venereal disease, right? People normally don't get venereal disease. It's only through sexually transmitted that they get it, because venereal disease is generally found in sheep. Sheep get venereal disease, and it's like a cold to them. But then when you have sailors that are shipping sheep over on ships, and they have sex with sheep, and then they get venereal disease, and they start spreading it around through sexually transmitted actions, then that's when people start getting venereal disease, and then it becomes an epidemic. And so the problem is a lot of through the uncleanliness of things that people do, through the lusts that they do. There's all sorts of sinful actions that they take part in that are causing these illnesses, and then they think that science, their God, is going to save them from it, and it's not.
Said lead researcher Haka Menesh Mastafai, according to technology news website Alpha. Study co-author Mala Przworski, an evolutionary biologist at Columbia, added it may be that men who don't carry these harmful mutations have more children, or that men and women who live longer can help with their grandchildren, improving their chance of survival. Meanwhile, variations associated with good health conditions are more likely to be passed on and are, as a result, increasingly present in the human gene pool. End of article. All right. So, if there's no more thoughts, next article. is from ABS CBN News, titled Man Jailed for Kicking Woman Who Wore Shorts in Bus. A Turkish court on Thursday sentenced a man to almost 4 years in prison for attacking a young nurse on a bus for wearing shorts in a case that sparked public outrage. The assault in Istanbul was caught on camera and reportedly shows the man.
Istanbul?
Oh, Istanbul. Okay.
Is that where it is? That's where this is coming
I
from,
believe
right?
so. Yeah, in Turkey. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's an N, not an M. You're right. Was caught on camera and reportedly shows the man shouting, "Those who wear shorts must die." Security guard.
Does the article go on to say why he said that? Ever?
I don't. I don't. It says that he has a mental disorder.
He has a. Are they sure about that?
Well, that's what he said.
All right, I'll keep listening.
Okay. Yeah. So it says security guard Abdullah Krioglu, who was not in court, was ordered to serve a 3-year and 10-month jail sentence for preventing the practice of freedom of faith, thought, and opinion, and deliberately causing injury. Isigul Terzi, 24, had previously told the court how her attacker shouted she had no right to live before kicking her in the face in the incident in September last year.
You see, as the reports coming from Istanbul, it might be, I mean, because you said that's in Turkey, right? Right. So don't they have a high rate of Muslims over there?
I believe so, because I mentioned something about the
woman that was walking through a Muslim area be killed for wearing shorts.
Yes.
So that's why I'm wondering, something about this doesn't sound right.
She said, yeah, I had previously told the court how her attacker shouted she has no right to live before kicking her in the face in the incident in September last year. I read that. I am often crying. I often find myself angry. I am often feeling like someone's about to attack me, she told Turkish television after the incident which sparked public outrage. At the time, Krioglu admitted to local media the assault was not right and said he was suffering from a mental illness, having previously been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. The incident galvanized public opinion in Turkey, which is officially a secular country, promoting street protests with the slogan, "Do not touch my shorts." The ruling Justice and Development Party, AKP, or President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, had championed the removal of restrictions on women wearing the Muslim headscarf. Critics have accused the AKP of presiding over the creeping.
This is the same article?
Yeah. It didn't make sense to me either.
Actually,
the same article. Oh,
they're actually relating that this was a Muslim issue.
Oh, okay.
It would actually make perfect sense if I was correct to say this guy was probably a Muslim.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Critics have accused the AKP of presiding over the creeping Islamization of Turkey and violating private rights, something the party denies. That's the end of the article. Yeah, so, yeah, it probably wasn't a Muslim like you were saying. Because I recall reading in another article, I should have... I'll find articles of the same story from different news agencies, and they leave out other things, then I have to pick one. And this one I picked, it left out some of the information that I've read earlier, and I recall it was another article saying it was because she was wearing inappropriate clothing, and that was bothering to him. And I believe it mentioned religion, but the article's name, if anybody wants to look it up, it's Man Jailed for Kicking Woman Who Wore Shorts in Bus. And you'll get a whole bunch of articles from a lot of different places. And they'll give more details. Probably should have picked a different article for that gave a little more detail. Anyway, if there's no more thoughts on that article, I'll go to the next article. An article from The Independent titled, Irma, Man Decides to Ride Out Hurricane in Florida After Airline Refuses to Let Him Fly with Dog. A man who was trying to flee from Hurricane Irma was told by an airline that he couldn't board a flight with his dog, so he decided to ride out the violent storm instead. Matt Vargas was preparing to jet out of Miami, Florida, as millions are leaving the state ahead of winds ranging up to 155 miles per hour that are swirling towards its southern coast. He rushed around to at least 10 pet shops to buy a carrier for his dog, Mika, aware that it is the rule to cage an animal before it can travel in the hold area of a plane. He failed to get one as the stores were all out of stock, so he decided to chance his luck and arrived at Miami International Airport to buy a plane ticket with his pet in tow. But the workers at the only airline with available seats out of Miami turned him away. He eventually decided to return home to the Kendall area of Miami and brave Irma rather than abandon Mika because of the policy. Mr. Vargas said, "I waited an hour in line and I don't have a pet carrier and they won't let me go on without a pet carrier. So I'm heading back just to ride out the storm." It came to Irma and it came as Irma is swirling towards the south of Florida with winds reaching up to 155 miles per hour, leaving a trail of destruction across the Caribbean that claimed at least 13 lives. Some 100,000 people refused to leave their homes in New Orleans before Hurricane Katrina hit the city, with nearly 44% saying they didn't want to leave their animals behind, CNN reported. Lawmakers passed legislation after the 2005 catastrophe, which ruled that the state chiefs who want to draw down emergency funds for a crisis must include pets in their disaster plans. Millions are fleeing from Florida after a mass evacuation was ordered in low-lying parts of the state as Irma is expected to batter its southern coast this weekend.
I am sorry to interrupt, but aren't there fines if you are caught abandoning an animal? If I'm not mistaken, many areas have a fine if you're caught abandoning an animal, but yet I understand why they wouldn't let him on the plane. That's one of the rules, and I kind of agree with that because not all dogs are well behaved. But at the same time, if he abandons the animal, can't he be fined for that? You can't win for losing.
Well, of course he can be fined for it. They just have to get out their special forces police force that go out in 150-mile-an-hour winds to enforce pet laws because that's their priority.
The article continues. Governor Rick Scott warned in a news conference, "You do not need to leave on Saturday." You do not want to leave on Saturday, driving through Florida with tropical storm force winds. And that's the end of the article. So, were there any thoughts on that article?
Well, I mean, I did, and now I forgot what it was because I was thinking about police being carried away.
But I think there's probably a clause for life or death situations in that, for a mass area. I mean, but
animals are not stupid. They run off on their own and they find shelter because they know what's coming.
If they can.
And so I saw a video just this last week.
Shelter will kill them.
Just this past week, I saw a video in which a hawk decided to jump in a guy's cab as the guy was on his way back to seek shelter himself from the hurricane, and a hawk just flew into his cab and took seat in the back seat and decided to stay there. They stopped for a bit to get some food, and he got a snack for the hawk, and the hawk jumped out on top of the door and was just sitting there eating, got up on his hand and everything, and said, try to get him. He didn't want to fly away, and he just stuck to his hand. He's like, I'm staying here.
I'm not going anywhere.
So he put him back in the cab, and he's just sitting up on the dash looking around, and they took him inside, and he's just huddled in the basement with him. He's like, I'm just going to chill here till everything's over.
I'm going to stay with you guys.
So animals are smart. They know how to find shelter. They know where the safe places are. He's like, I don't necessarily like people, but I'll face the people more than the hurricane. I'll take my chances with the people. They seem pretty chill, and they have some good hamburgers.
Now, I will admit, when I was in Katrina helping clean up, we did find a number of dead animals. So it's going to happen either way.
Well, you find a number of dead people, too. I mean, they just don't talk about that very much, but you find a lot of dead stuff.
I meant a year later.
The thing is, if it's a tragic situation, you've had to face it multiple times, move. there are a lot of, I mean, have you driven across places like Oklahoma and Minnesota places? There is tons of open, vacant places where you can build a house out there.
Well, I know from my point of view, I mean, for instance, I have chickens. I'm sorry, when it comes to my life or the chickens, buy chickens.
So were there any more thoughts on that? That was our last article. Okay, then maybe we'll close. But about the chickens, I think some people they value their dogs more than their chickens because I don't know why, but I agree. I see what you're saying because I think I would leave my dogs, but I do see what you're saying, but anyway.
I just saw a video on YouTube last night that this woman knew that there was a storm coming and she left her back door open and she went out to look for some of the animals, the wild animals that she takes care of, and couldn't find any of them. She came back in the house and there were 3 fawns already in her house that were getting away from the storm. 3 baby deer.
And
well, that's because, you know, Josh, to answer your question, that's because chickens are not excited to see you. Okay. And that's like, I guess it's along the same lines as
unless you have food.
The guy making the joke, he says, if you want to know something about loyalty, lock your dog and your wife in the trunk of your car for 2 hours, and when you come unlock them, see who's excited to see you. About loyalty. Chickens don't have loyalty.
My chickens do. They know me. They come right to me when they're out in the yard.
No. Chickens. Chickens. Stop feeding them. See how loyal they are.
And I forgot what I said. Well, anyway, so if there's, I remember what I was going to say. Some people, their dogs, they say like, my dogs are like children to me, and they say that they're, you know, just as important to them as children. And yeah, their dogs are. But that's what
some
people
say. Because I haven't heard people say my goats are like kids to me.
Anyway, so I suppose we'll close, and I'll give you the link, so you can put it in the description after the video. So for that GoFundMe for the first article, but so after the video I'll do that. But anyway, thank you everybody who has joined us this week. If you'd like to comment or read comments for this video, click the link in the description, which takes you to the forum, and you can even make an account there and talk with us throughout the week. Just introduce yourself so we know a little bit about you, and Lord willing, we're going to see you next week.